When we talk about creating abstract art, we often think about the materials we use, right? We talk about the painting and the paper and the canvases and the brushes and things that we use to create our artwork. But what happens if we think a little outside the box and start to use materials that aren't really standard to our palette to create some very interesting results? This week on Mixed Media Masters. Hello makers and welcome to the studio. Hey, if this is your first time here, thank you for being here. We're really happy to have that. By the way, we drop a new video every single week helping people understand how to create abstract art and just have fun with it. And we'd love to have you join us. Please feel free to hit the submit button below to get started. Now, as mentioned, we're going to be working kind of outside the box, and this week I want to create some abstract art using some rather non-traditional art materials. Now, to begin with, we're going to be building something, if you will, on a piece of wood, and I have that right here. So this is a 6-inch by 6-inch piece of 1/8 Luan plywood. Now there are a number of different types of materials you can use, and I'll have some links in the description below that talks about how you can purchase this as basswood or cut pieces of birch plywood, whatever it is. What I'm looking for is something that I can build on, and in this case I have a piece of wood and I have painted it matte black. And this is going to allow me to just really have a foundation to work on. Now, what are we creating today? Well, a bit of a surprise, and one of those things that when we create abstract art, one of the fun things, at least for me, is oftentimes I don't know what's going to happen, right? It's like going to be a surprise for me. Whereas I always think about people who are painting a scene, let's say, like a painting a bridge. I may be disappointed if my painting of the bridge doesn't look like the bridge itself. When you're creating abstract art, sometimes it's really just an exploration of methodologies and techniques and colors and form, and what you end up with sometimes is a pleasant surprise. And you're like, hey, look at that. I didn't know what I was going to get, and I got this instead. So in this case, what I'm thinking about today is I want to be able to build on this piece of wood. Now, I could paint this piece of wood, but in this case, I'm actually going to be driving some nails into this piece of wood. Let me tell you what I'm doing here and kind of share this methodology with you. Again, you know, nobody really thinks about going to the big box hardware store for their art supplies, but sometimes you find some pretty interesting things. So these are escutcheon pins. And now, when you look up escutcheon, this is for creating brass work. These are brass plated nails, or brads, if you will, that allow you to put up things that would be finishing work in a home. The plates that go around lamps, the plates that go around wall switches, things like that. On the other side, we have some copper-based brads that are sitting over here, and these would be great if you were putting up copper weather stripping on your roof and around things to protect your home. Now, at the end of the day, they're both small nails, and what's really cool about working with these, it allows us to identify if there's a look and feel that we want to be able to use when we build our thing. And I think in this case, I'm going to go with the copper, and for a couple of different reasons. One, the copper has a bigger head on the nail, and that's going to help us for the task at hand. Now, what I want to do here is I'm going to spill out about 25 of these, and by the way, the exact number that you use doesn't really matter, but somewhere between 20 and 25 I find will give you the best results. So we'll see how this goes. Now, simply what I want to be able to do is I want to take these brads, these nails, and I want to hammer them into this board, and I want to create kind of a framework. I want to create almost a ring, maybe a couple in the center. We'll make it kind of interesting. But I want to be able to create some sort of a framework. And around each one of these nails, once we have them in place, we're going to take embroidery floss, different colors of embroidery thread, and we're going to weave them into the nails that we're creating. So yeah, that's what we're doing. In order to do this, just to make things a lot easier, I have a board here. I'm going to drop my board onto my cutting mat here so I don't have to necessarily accidentally hammer any nails into my cutting board. That wouldn't be a good thing. So I have a sacrifice board on the bottom here. And of course I'm going to need a hammer. Now I just have a standard claw hammer. If you had a smaller hammer, probably wouldn't be the worst thing from an overkill standpoint. But I'm simply going to grab one of my brads and I'm going to place it on the board. And what I want to do is I want to hammer it as much as I can to get it to show up straight up and down. And I want to hammer it till it's just starting to poke through the other side. I don't want to go too deep in here, but I want it firm enough into the board because it's going to be a fair amount of tension once we start wrapping our embroidery floss around this. And I'm going to just drop over here. Let me just drop another nail in. Again, my focus is making sure that this nail is going up and down here and not bending to the side. It's just going to look a lot better. Best we can do. Now what happens if, you know, you're not a very good carpenter and it starts to lean over? Well, you could just use your thumb to kind of straighten it up and hammer it in and make it a little bit more true. So there we go. And by the time you can generally hear when it's going through the board and into the board underneath it. You can just get a sense of what that's going to be like. And again, I'm simply going to be creating a bit of a framework here. Looks like we have one that's gone through a little further than it should. Let's make it a little wobbly for us here. So let me just, there we go. Makes it easier. And let's get another one right here. And you can see I'm creating kind of an irregular ring. And I'll put another one down here. I don't want to crowd the edge too much. I want to make sure I'm in from the edge because the black that's left over is also going to serve as a frame for the art we will be creating. There we go. Come in a little bit. I'm going to go totally crazy and put one kind of right in the middle area. There we go. And let's put something right about there. Let's put something right in here. Let's see, right up here in this corner. Okay, and let's see what else we have in here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. Let's at least put another 5 in here. There we go, there's one there. And as you can see, there's no right answer. That's most of what we do with our abstract creations. Kind of follow just happenstance, if you will. A lot of, like I said, a lot of what we're doing here is we're creating a surprise for ourselves. We don't know how this is going to turn out. And that's part of the fun, I feel, when creating any kind of abstract art piece, is that you're going to be the first one to be surprised by how it turns out. All right, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. I'm going to put one more in, and I'm going to put it, right here. All right. Now again, I may have nailed through my board a little bit, but this is going to work out pretty well for me. And the good news is that these are in here pretty well. They're fairly stable. And if I want to just test them, you know, kind of give them a wiggle. If they wiggle, you need to be hammered in a little bit more, but that should work for what we want to do. Now the next thing we want to be able to do is choose our palette, and I'm working with a series of colors. So if I go into my collection of embroidery thread, and by the way, you can pick this up in your big box art stores, and they're really affordable. I mean, just you can get a lot of colors for not a lot of money. And yeah, we're not exactly in doing embroidery, but this will work as well. So I want to have some bright colors to work with here. I have an orange and a yellow. I have a bright pink here. That'll be kind of fun. I have a bright blue color here, which we'll work with, and I have a more deeper dark blue. I have kind of a burgundy purple color here, and I have a green color. Now what I'm going to do, and I'll start with a bright color. Let me start with my orange, for example. So with my orange, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a length to work with here. Just pull it out. And then on my board, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kind of choose a starting point. Maybe this nail up here will be my starting point. And with my thread, I'm just going to create a loop here, and I'm going to take the long part of my thread and I'm going to bring it up through the loop. Basically, I'm just creating a loop that I can connect to, and I'm going to attach it to that nail, and I'm just going to pull it tight, and what it will do is it will just create a slip knot here. And once I have it slipped in here, I'm going to tie it off a little bit tighter because I want this to stay, obviously. And so there it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to move it across. I'm going to find another nail, and I'm going to wrap around it once. I'm going to come to another nail and wrap around it. I'm going to come across to another nail and wrap around it. And you can even wrap around it more than once if that's going to work to help you redirect where you're going. Okay, and I'm basically just creating a random shape with this orange colored line. Now after I've gone in here and created something that's, you know, taking up a fair amount of whatever real estate I want to take up, it's entirely up to me, is I can make a decision on where I might want this to end. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to bring it up actually to this pin up in this corner here. I'm going to wrap it, and then, and you need a pair of scissors by the way to make this happen, I'm going to cut this off, and I want to keep it tight, but I want to also come in here and I want to finish this off by tying a knot at the end. So I'm going to loop back under here. Hopefully you can see this without my hands being in the way. There we go. All right, so we want this to be tight, do best we can. I'm going to put a second knot in here so this will hopefully stay secure. And by the way, we're going to finish these off a little bit later once we have everything in here using some clear super glue, or I've heard that clear nail polish will also help with something like this. I don't, strangely, have a lot of experience with nail polish, but you might have some lying around that will allow you to do the trick. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to just kind of snip the ends off. I'm not going to get crazy close to begin with. I can come back in here and make changes because I certainly don't want to affect my knot and have this come undone. But there we go. So there's our first color in place. And so we have a little bit of an orange foundation. I find working with the brighter colors at the back really helps them come through, whereas the more subdued colors can sit on top. To that point, let's go with yellow as the second color here. And again, let me get a thread pulled out of here. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to just create a loop here. And let's get the long part through the loop. There we go. And I'll put it up here on this currently unused. And let's tie it off here. There we go. And again, you know, where I go with it is entirely up to me. You know what, I'm going to grab this one in the middle. Kind of interesting having one in the middle, and I'll just kind of change directions like that. I'll come up here, wrap around this guy, pick up this spare one over here. And let's see, let me go wrap this guy here, down to here. And again, I'm probably getting to the point where that might be enough yellow. I need to figure out where to conclude this. I'll go in here, and I will also, I'm going to end things over here on this one up here. Okay, so give it a couple wraps. Let's cut the thread, and let's see if we can get it tied off properly in here. And it turns out, there we go. So that's, there we go. Let me get a bit another loop in here. So we get this tied off beautifully. There we go. And once again, let me grab and let's trim those ends off. There's one. There's another. Good. Okay. So we've got some bright colors. Let's go continue with the bright color marathon here. And we're going to put some pink in here. We'll layer that on top of the two colors we currently have in here. And again, sometimes the big challenge is finding the end of your thread. There we go. Let's create a loop that we can work with here. And I'm going to grab this currently unused. There we go. Let's get an extra loop in there. Tie that off. Beautiful. And I'm going to come over here like this. And I'm going to come up here to that one. And over here to that one. I'm going to grab this one that's kind of alone. Bend over to here. And up to here. Just make a kind of a fun pattern. We're looking for a bit of, you know, again, we want this to be somewhat abstract, and this is going to allow us to do just that. And I think that's good. I'm going to finish it over here on this side, just cause. Give it a couple wraps. Let's get this cut. Yeah. Okay, and now let's go and again trim our ends off here. And this one over here as well. So we're starting to see how that looks pretty interesting already. Now again, this is going to be just designed as a splash of color. It's relatively small. I'm going to show you. We're going to frame this up in a really kind of unique way, so that you have something that really just can hang on the wall and be a good splash of color. Let's get this bright blue color into play here. And again, let's start by finding an end. And if we can't find one, we'll make one. There we go. I have one. I have one. Let me make a loop here again. And I'm going to start it over here with this one that's already got some orange on it. Okay, and let's get that tied off. Nice. I'll just trim it while I'm here, while I'm thinking about it. And I'm going to take this one and, as we've done before, let's just go create some interesting angles between these colors. Okay, now go there. And what are we doing? How about you? And then you. And then you. And I think I'm getting to the point where I want to end with the blue. So I'll bring it over. I'll bring it over to actually I'll loop in here, and I will bring it up to this one right here. This post at the top or the bottom now. So let me cut this off. Let me wrap it, and let me tie it. Okay, and once again, just going to come in here and give that a snip. And we now have blue laying over this. Now, by the way, the colors you use here, entirely up to you. You may have a completely different aesthetic, or maybe you're trying to match some colors. You want to have collections of blues and greens. Knock yourself out. Do whatever's going to make you happy here. I'm going with the bright colors because, well, they're the kinds of things that make me happy, but there is no right answer here at all. All right, so, and by the way, you can also kind of, put your other colors on here and go, how will that look if I add this too? How about this purple? I think the purple, to be honest, with the black background we have here, would just get lost. And the blue, well, the blue may have some possibilities in here, and so might the green. I'm going to put the green in at least. I may stop there. We'll find out once we get in there. So let's get the green in here. And again, create our loop. And let's attach it to the same place where we started one of the oranges. And have that, we tie it a little extra tight. Beautiful. And let's make some magic happen here. Once again, gonna wrap around you. Gonna go over to here. Bring it over here. Yeah, we just want to get this color mixed in with the other colors and the layering here. It's kind of an interesting look, I think. Okay. And bend that there. And bend this here. And come over here. And again, I don't want to overdo it. Don't want to saturate this with necessarily the green. A couple more bends here. And why don't I bring this over? I'm going to end it where this yellow one is. Beautiful. All right. And again, I'm going to tie this guy off. Okay, and then cut the ends off here. And we're good to go with that. All right. Now, as I mentioned before, it might be worth it to kind of do an analysis of how our little threads are sticking out. We want this to look as good as possible. We also want it to stay relatively tight so that these lines, as it were, don't start to droop over time. So one of the solutions that I've heard, and I'm not going to bother here, but I want to share it with you, is you can put a drop of super glue on each one of the places where you've actually tied off, and that will go and soak into the knot and make it pretty much impossible to unravel. All right. Now, the one thing I will caution you about, again, with super glue, is that you want to make sure that you get just enough on the knot and not have it drip down and get on your board, because that may create some sort of a stain later. And of course, always with super glue, you keep your fingers out of it as best you can. Otherwise, it's another interesting challenge for you. But I'm going to just, like I said, this is more of a show and tell and how we're going to do this. Now, in this context, I have a frame that I want to use. I'm going to show you. And because, by the way, this has some relief, right? We have about, I don't know, ½ an inch or so from the base to the top, maybe a little bit more than that, 3/8 of an inch. And so I'm going to need a frame that's going to allow me to have something that's going to stick out a little bit, and I have that here. Now this is a small frame, it's an 8x10 frame, and this will give me an opportunity to come in and the goal is to position this in the frame, something like that. Now you may notice that in this particular frame, it's got kind of a wood backing. So I want to do something about that to dress this up a little bit first, and then we can finish this thing up. So let me get the back off of this. That'll be our start here. There we go. And I can lift this out of the way. And again, you can see here, maybe not particularly well, but you can see that there's depth here, about 3/8 of an inch or so. Actually about 5/8 of an inch overall. It's a little over half an inch. And I think that's going to be good. And again, you know, I would kind of see what this is going to look like if I put it in here. Will it be down low enough? It's going to be a little tight. And again, I can pound the nails in a little bit further if I need to. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. But for starters, what I want to be able to do, because this is going to be sitting on this wooden background, is the wooden background, if I'm going to be totally honest, not the color I was looking for. So one of the things I'm thinking is I want to colorize this. Now, could I come in and paint this a color? Sure. Do I want to do that in this case? I'm going to take a path that's going to be a little bit easier for me, and I'm just going to simply cover it up with some paper, which is a color that I want here. So let me move this out of the way and let's work on this for a hot second. And what I might do here is work with one of my my paper books here. Now I have here some Blush Romance, but the thing I like about these colors is that they're really kind of subtle. We got some subtle pinks, a little bit more brighter pink, and then kind of an off-white, almost a taupe color here, which I think would be great. And by the way, I could certainly, you know, put my artwork on it and say, how are we doing? And the thing is, I don't want to have a background that's too colorful because it's going to draw the eye away from the actual art itself. So I think a neutral background will give us an opportunity to have something where the brightness really shows up here. So I like that. I think this is going to work out well. So I'm going to tear this sheet off. Thank you for that, block paper. And I'm going to simply come and paste it in on this background, this backdrop here. Make it very easy for myself. And let me grab a glue stick. I'm using my Basics glue stick here. They're multi-purpose, very handy to have. And I'm going to simply just cover the back of this piece of wood with the glue so I can put some paper on it. That's going to be the goal here. All right, well, the special gluing music certainly helps us get through the embroidery parts. And I'm simply now going to take my piece of paper and let's drop it in here. I'll line it up with the corner. And let's give it lined up top and bottom. There we go. And just smooth it out. Use our hands for this. Of course, make sure your hands aren't covered with something like paint, because that'd be bad. And then I'm going to simply turn it over, and using a utility knife, which I have right here, I'm going to just trim off the edges. There's one. And let's get this over here and trim that as well. There we go. Let's see how we're doing. Looks like just this corner needs a little work. Beautiful. And there we go. Take it nice and easy. All right. So there we are. So now we have a piece of paper on our wood. It looks much better this way, I think. And now it's an opportunity for us to position our artwork where it needs to go. Now again, one of the things that I have discovered is sometimes when your nails come through, it's very hard to get things to balance the way you want them to. Now when I set things up, and this is my own personal preference, I like to have a little bit more white space, if you will, at the bottom than at the top. That helps me identify where top and bottom is, but make it equidistant coming in here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that we can adhere this to this backing paper. Now, because I've tried this in the past, trying to use a glue stick or something like here to adhere wood to paper, not your best choice. So we're going to use a hot glue gun to get ourselves a bead of hot glue in here. All right, so let's get some glue on the back of this. And again, a couple, we want this to adhere to the paper. It doesn't have to necessarily be super, super heavy duty. Again, I'm balancing it so that it's a little bit more white space at the bottom than there is at the top. And we'll press that down. And the beautiful thing about working with hot glue is you don't have to wait for it to dry. Just cool down a little bit. It's already adhering beautifully, and we're good to go. All right, last thing to do is let's put everything together. So there's our frame top. I'm going to flip this over here and get it in place. And let's get these tabs down here to hold everything where it needs to be. Now again, because this is a relatively tall piece in the frame, it may push back a little bit. And there we go. Now we have managed to create ourselves a one-of-a-kind piece of artwork. And it's really based upon our methods and our colors and all how we did. I'm actually pleased with how it turned out. It's kind of a fun little, again, it's an easy thing that you can make in under an hour. There's some basic materials in here, but it's not an incredibly costly process either. There's some nice things that have come out of this. Anyway, thank you so much for your time and attention. Please feel free to join us here every week. We drop a video every Friday morning here on Mixed Media Masters, and we'd love to have you come along. So feel free to subscribe. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for dropping by, and I'll talk to you next time.